Mama Kwabam from like Black Media. I was President John Dramani Mahama Kasama for I friend say Ofusu Kwache Aba Bontin Abe Kansen Bia Wutimi say Nibla Pan with the free President John Dramani Mahama camp Eba. No people was a sense ya Mompire Yentimin Shade Media say the son sent me an empire boy.
Ya bompaye Shamachi Shra Yahuwa ila helu Yahuwa ekat we ahata et Yahuwa Elohika bika luvika uvika navashika uvika miyodika tode yasak in English in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Abusia ya jim pai boy we dia ene na tia wayenko ne haleswe abusia eye Ofosu Kwache eye kasamafo edema President John Dramani Mahama na ensema na nsantem viral pa kese eye kinofoliata eye scam ne sebi wanted dia waye ewo mema OSP ba bonten be declare no eno na eye spokesperson Ofosu Kwache ba bonten din sembia betudwa ewo ho eno na dey so eye GJA president Dwumfour Bonten eba be kan sembia eno so no President John Dramani Mahama so ye say omani nye ensema eye Dwumfour GJA president eba Bonten ede betu dwa no eye asem say na say eye bibi say ase patriotism eye wura eye GJA president Dwumfour etirimu ye pa na afen so eye demonstration eba Bonten say omoso mo ntiase concerning eye enkora school for enkora ni teachers won sensem no abusia emunsam ne de edoso na mpese o kame ho ne akwaje nchirimu no every spokesperson Ofosu Kwache ho edema John Dramani Mahama besisi
requires some responses. There are three of them. The first one relates to the issue of the Clag threat to go on strike because of the appointment of a registrar for the births and deaths registry. The second one relates to a statement read by the president of the Ghana Journalists Association yesterday regarding reports of some assaults on a number of journalists. And the third relates to a directive that President Mahama issued last week for the Minister of Finance to settle maturing coupons for Ghanaian bondholders, and also the directive for the minister to reactivate the sinking fund as a mechanism for addressing our debt situation. So these are the three matters on which I will be addressing you. After that, when the floor is open, if you have any other questions that you think require responses, you can ask them. Now, on the Clag matter, for quite some time, Clag has been engaging government and insisting that the registrar of the births and deaths registry should be removed and replaced by a civil servant. Currently, the registrar there is Mr. Samuel Adumboche, who was appointed by the president. Clag, however, in spite of their demands, have not been able to indicate which legal basis informs the demand they are making. Government has enormous respect for organized labor, including Clag, and we are willing at every point in time to engage, to dialogue, and find amicable solutions to any impasse or disputes that may arise. We are also very much committed to enhancing the welfare of Ghanaian workers. Indeed, I have only come from the Ministry of Finance, and I'm aware that they are entering negotiations as I speak to determine the minimum wage and the base pay.
Abuja baby a wohwe me bia wo haw ne amane kodan na bia da eda wo so bia no bomode se oni me bedi nkomo ye de samna nwanwaso bi aba e frene se eye sika kokko na gold samna wo haw bia da eda wo so bia wo hia sa samna we se bi afi wo ye bema wo hwe me wo bema sam wo pom bema ye ketwa brabeji bula matali eduro bi na wo bema enye kese watimi abo adwuma so ache e wo empem ye de akwankyere bi aba abuja no ye hwehwe wo hyebrim a ye frene se mpelifo akwankyere ana se wo betima frene back to sender onipa bi ha onipa bi tata wato bet e won ho se wo sanity bi obeku bomode so be fa numbers na egu screen ase na woni mi akasa me hwehwe wo hyebrim wi a na bomode se me kire wo ne obeye.
And this has been done because of government's commitment to ensuring that Ghanaians or Ghanaian workers have decent working conditions. We are also committed to ensuring regulatory compliance so that the work environment for Ghanaian workers is enhanced, is improved, and is one in which they can give off their very best. That said, we also welcome suggestions and opinions from Ghanaian workers through their labor organizations on how we can fine-tune our governance processes. But it must be pointed out that everything that government does must be based on law, must be guided by law. In fact, all of us as Ghanaians are enjoined to carry ourselves and conduct our activities on the basis of Ghanaian law. So when CLOSAG makes a specific demand for some action to be taken in respect of appointments to certain government organizations, they must do so on the basis of law. So you may ask where the law stands on all of this. We have engaged CLOSAG, we have made it known to them that we believe that the president has acted in accordance with Ghanaian law. Now the births and deaths registry does not exist in isolation. It's an entity set up by law and governed by law. Indeed, the most recent law that governs the activities of that department is the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 2020, which is Act 1027. And this act sets out in detail how the activities of that organization are to be conducted. And in fact, when it comes to the appointment of a registrar, who essentially is the head of that department, Section 2 of Act 1027 makes it clear how it ought to be done. The contention of CLOSAG is that the registrar position is a civil service position. That has to be backed by a specific provision in law. Now, if you read the relevant section of this law, Section 2, which deals with appointment of the registrar of births and deaths, Section 2.1 says, the registry shall have a registrar of births and deaths. Section 2.2 says, the president shall, in accordance with Article 195 of the Constitution, appoint the registrar. Now you may seek to inquire what Article 195 says. Article 195 simply gives the president power to make appointments, and in some instances allows him to delegate that power to other entities, individuals or organizations to do. And in the specific instance of the births and deaths registry, the law governing the operations of that the law governing the operations of that entity spells out clearly who should make the appointment. It says the president, and the president has acted in accordance with the 1992 Constitution. Now, Section 2.3 says the president shall, in appointing a person as the registrar, have regard to the relevant academic qualification, experience, and knowledge of that person in civil registration. The registrar shall hold office on the terms and conditions specified in the letter of appointment. So, the criteria for that appointment is clearly spelled out in Section 2 of this Act. CLOSAG has not questioned the competence of the current occupant of the position of registrar. They only say that he is politically exposed. But I have just read the law to you, and you as journalists, I'm sure, have capacity to dig up this law and read it for yourself. There is no way that it is fair that the position ought to be occupied by a civil servant. And Mr. Dwumfour is a highly experienced official who in the past has served as district chief executive under the Mills administration. And he has many years of public service experience. And he has requisite academic qualifications to hold that particular position. So it is the view of government that whilst we respect our partners in organized labor and seek to dialogue on all relevant matters, in this particular instance, the president has acted in accordance with Ghanaian law. And for that reason, there cannot be a reason why Mr. Dwumfour should be removed only because he is not a civil servant. There is no provision that says that the position is reserved for civil servants. If it is the view of CLOSAG that in the past civil servants have occupied it, it does not mean that any other person apart from a civil servant cannot occupy that position. And we need to act strictly in accordance with Ghanaian law, even as we continue to engage and dialogue on how we govern our country. We are aware of similar agitations in the past against the appointee of President Akufo-Addo. And we do know that a court case emanated from that particular engagement. As we speak, I am not aware that the court has determined the matter. So until this law is revoked or there is judicial pronouncement that says that this particular law is illegal and should be struck down, we believe that the president has acted correctly in respect of the appointment of Mr. Dwumfour. So we would appeal to CLOSAC to rescind their decision to go on strike. A strike action we appreciate. It's one of the mechanisms through which they can drive home their demands. They can compel government to take a look at their grievances. But in this particular instance, we do not believe that sufficient basis exists to go on strike, because it will be unfair to the people of Ghana who pay the wages of all public officials, including members of CLOSAC, that on the basis of a belief which is not backed by law, they go on strike. I don't think that we'll be doing right by the people of Ghana if that position is sustained. So that will be it for the issue regarding CLOSAC and the births and deaths registry. The second issue that I wish to address is a press conference held by the Ghana Journalists Association yesterday, in which it was claimed that 7 journalists had been attacked, and statements were made that sought to create the impression that there is some design by President Mahama and his government to attack journalists. It is a most regrettable narrative. We do not think that it is fair to President Mahama, it is fair to government, it is even fair to the Ghana Journalists Association, or even to the journalists who are reported to have been attacked. Subsequent to the press conference, I have engaged the president of the Ghana Journalists Association in my capacity as the minister responsible for government communications, which then means that journalists, as you are, who we work with, are part of the stakeholders that we need to engage regularly. I sought to find out exactly what informed the press conference and why other alternative approaches were not adopted to discuss the matters with a view to seeking redress for those who may have been affected. After the conversation, we agreed that early next week there should be a direct interaction between my office and the Ghana Journalists Association. So I hope that that meeting comes off, and at that meeting we'll be able to address any concerns that journalists may have. That said, I must also express dismay about the way that narrative was woven. It created a certain misleading impression about government and about President Mahama, which needs to be straightened. All of you are aware that President Mahama is an easygoing, down-to-earth, affable individual who relates very well with all manner of people. He is a member of the Ghana Journalists Association in good standing. So essentially he is one of you. He is a member of the Inky fraternity, and therefore he will be the last person to supervise a dispensation where journalists are attacked. But the way that the press conference was addressed and the way that the matters were couched created the impression that some journalists had perhaps said or written something that government was unhappy about, and therefore government was carrying out reprisals against them. But that is completely incorrect. It is not true, and nothing of the sort has happened. When I inquired from the Ghana Journalists Association president, he mentioned instances where at a recent Council of State elections there was some scuffle and some journalists were roughed up. He also spoke about Erastus Asaidonko, who is reported to have been set upon by some illegal miners when he went there to cover their activities. But these are incidents involving persons who are acting unlawfully. For instance, illegal miners in the first place are breaking the law. So if in an attempt to report the activities, some of them attack a journalist, I'm not sure that you can lay the blame at the doorstep of President Mahama or the government. It is an act of criminality which should be dealt with in the same manner that if someone attacked me or assaulted me, it should be dealt with. If at the Council of State elections there is a scuffle and some misguided elements rough up journalists, for me it's a pure law and order issue. which should be reported and dealt with by appropriate law enforcement agencies. I do not see how government can be roped in and the president can be said to have supervised a situation where 7 journalists are attacked. If you close from work today and on your way, you engage in a dispute in traffic and somebody assaults you, I'm not sure that it would be fair to say that President Mahama is in power and you've been attacked, so he should be held responsible. If it is the case that you have reported that there is some wrongdoing in government, or you've uncovered some unlawful acts by the president or any official in government, and because of that, government has organized its agents or assigns to assault you or harm you in any way, then you can say that the president has to be held liable or government has to be held liable. And in this country, we've seen instances like that, where Ahmed Swale, who was known to have been actively involved in uncovering corruption in football in Ghana, was gunned down in broad daylight. That matter remains outstanding and is yet to be resolved. We've seen instances where Edward Adeti, a reporter for GH1 and Star FM, reported some underhand dealings in the Upper East region, I believe, involving the minister of that region at the time. And for that reason, he had to flee because his life was in danger and he was being threatened by agents, known agents of the state. And there are other examples that we can cite. But if illegal miners attack a journalist, or there's a scuffle and some journalists are robbed up, I don't see how it can be said that we have a situation where journalists are being attacked under President Mahama. These are violations of the law which should be reported. So the Ghana Journalists Association has every right to inquire about the status of investigations, but that inquiry should be addressed to law enforcement officials who have jurisdiction over these matters. President Mahama will not under any circumstance tolerate a situation where journalists are attacked for doing their work, especially in holding government accountable. Indeed, President Mahama himself has come under criticism, sometimes from members of his own party, for being overly tolerant of criticism. There were people who were fierce critics of his when, in his previous guise as president of Ghana between 2013 and 2016, they reported on some matters. In one instance, he threw a cordon of protection around the journalists who had reported on a matter that had tarnished his reputation, even though it was found that the reportage was inaccurate. Unlike under President Akufo-Addo, where journalists had to flee the country because agents of the state were pursuing them, President Mahama threw a cordon of protection around journalists. Journalists who criticized him have been welcomed to his house, to his office. He has attended their book launches and extended a hand of courtesy and friendship to them. He has never shown hostility to any journalist at any point in time that he has been in public office or public life. Therefore, it is most unfair for this sort of narrative to be woven. But as I have indicated, early next week, we shall have formal engagements with the leadership of the Ghana Journalists Association, at which meeting I'm sure these matters can be ironed out. But if you are a journalist in Ghana, you have President Mahama's fullest assurance that merely because you report on his government, even in adverse ways, you are not going to face any reprisal. But please endeavor to use the appropriate channels to seek redress when other members of society harm you in any way. To every extent possible, government will lend its weight to efforts to seek redress in these matters. But we must distinguish between the actions of overzealous or errant security officials and other members of society and orchestrated attacks by government to punish, as it were, journalists for exposing wrongdoing. The latter is not happening, even if the former is extremely worrying. And we are interested in ensuring that all category of professionals, be they journalists or any other group of professionals, do not suffer for doing their work. So that clarity needs to be brought to the matters at hand. The last matter that I want to address relates to the reactivation of the sinking fund and honoring of Ghana's obligations to bondholders. 2 days ago, I issued a statement in which I conveyed news of a directive from President Mahama to the Ministry of Finance to take steps to settle maturing coupons of Ghanaian bondholders who suffered drastic haircuts under the domestic debt exchange program. So on Tuesday, 17th February, Monday, 17th February, I beg your pardon, an amount of 6 billion Ghana cedis or so was paid to these bondholders. Now, subsequent to the announcement of this payment and the announcement that the sinking fund has been reactivated, we have had some rebuttals from the MPP, whose officials have claimed that we have been able to do that as a government only because they left some buffers, and that it is not because of any specific intervention from President Mahama. I wish to place on record that this narrative is untrue. For officials of the former government to be able to say that these payments and honoring of these obligations have been the outcome of work that they did, they need to point specifically where those buffers were located. Because in order to be able to pay the money, you need to find it and lodge it somewhere. That is what you call a buffer, pending payment at a given date. Now, what we call the sinking fund for short is actually known as the debt service reserve account. That is where money is kept pending the payment of bondholders and other creditors. Now, this debt service reserve account has a CD component and a dollar component. In other words, there are two accounts, one denominated in cedis, the other denominated in dollars. So because it is an account, it is possible to obtain a statement of account which shows you transactions over a certain period. So if the MPP officials are saying that we are able to pay these monies because they left money in the sinking fund, it should reflect when you take a cursory look at the statement of account. I have the statement of account before me. It is a voluminous document which shows all transactions that have occurred in the account over a certain period. Now, if you look at the dollar denominated debt service reserve account, the records will show that the last time under the MPP, when there was a movement in the account, was 22nd October 2024. That was the last time that any money came in or left that account before the MPP left power. Now, if you check the balance in the account as of 22nd October 2024, it was $64,387. $64,387. We are talking about payments within the range of 6 billion Ghana cedis. And you and I know that $64,000 cannot amount to 6 billion Ghana cedis. Indeed, if you did a rough conversion using an exchange rate of 15 cedis, I'm sure you will get something in the region of about 800,000 Ghana cedis or so, if I'm not mistaken, or a little over 1 million Ghana cedis, if my mathematics is right. Now, on 31st January 2025, and everybody knows that on 31st January 2025, it was the NDC government that was in power, not so. An amount of $96,915,182 was lodged in the account by the finance minister, and it is clear where that money came from. It did not come from anything that the MPP had left in that account. Let me repeat it. The last time that there was any movement in the debt service recovery account, reserve account, I beg your pardon, under the MPP was 22nd October 2024. The balance on that day in the account was $64,387. The next time there was a movement was 31st January 2025, and a transfer of $96,915,182 was made into the account in order to ensure that we are able to meet the obligation that arose on 18 February 2025. That is the payment of maturing coupons to bondholders. Now, if you look at the CD denominated debt service reserve account, you will find also that when the NDC took over on 7 January 2025, the last time that anything had happened in that account before the NPP left was 2nd January 2025. 2nd January 2025. The amount of money in the account on that date, 2nd January 2025, was 155,463,435 Ghana cedis. 155,463,435 Ghana cedis. Bear in mind that we are talking about payments in excess of 6 billion Ghana cedis. In addition to that, another 9 billion Ghana cedis is actually sitting in the fund as we speak to pay for maturing coupons in July and August. If you put it together, that is 15 billion Ghana cedis. Yet the balance when the MPP was sleeping was 155 million Ghana cedis. So how could they possibly say that they were the ones who built the buffer? What kind of buffer is this? If you have obligations amounting to 15 billion Ghana cedis, is the buffer you need for that 155 million Ghana cedis? And if you check the statement of account, which I'm willing to show you, you will see movements of monies into the account starting from somewhere around 23rd January 2025 by this government. And that is the reason why we were able to honor the obligations that arose from the domestic debt exchange program. As I speak to you, as of yesterday, 17th February 2025, the balance in the account was 9,270,537,727.67 cedis. That is the balance, and this balance is there as a buffer against debt service obligations in July and August this year. So it is clear on the basis of available facts and evidence that the claim by members of the MPP administration, which just left power, that we are able to honor these obligations because of buffers they built, is completely untrue. So I will end here and take any questions that you may have. Thank you very much. The finance people call T-main. T-main simply means taxes. Government raises revenue from both tax and non-tax sources. So since January, we've been paying taxes, have we not? Yeah, so government has simply mopped up whatever has come to it and mobilized additional resources from elsewhere so that I can have this money to be able to fulfill the obligation. We did not come to meet 15 billion in the account as the MPP is claiming.
Okay, so within that period, has any money coming from like external?
No, any monies that have come in are monies that have been mobilized domestically or from other sources. The government of Ghana has several accounts that go to meet different purposes. But to be able to service your debt, you need to have money for that purpose. It must be earmarked for the purpose. What the MPP is saying is that when we came to power, we came to meet money that had been earmarked for servicing this debt. And I'm saying, and I've proven to you, and I'm willing to show the documents to you so that you can peruse it. And perhaps it will inform the way that you carry the story. They are saying that they left money in an account, and that's how come we are able to service the debt. I'm saying that is not true. If you look at the account, it's not true. The money is there, $64,000 in the dollar account and $155 million in the CD account. Come nowhere near what we need. It's a fraction of what was needed to settle the 6 billion and the 9 billion that we need to settle in July and August. Yeah.
Okay,
okay, sure. All right, yeah.
The debt,
yes.
I remember that when the issue came up, we issued a statement that the government was withdrawing that appointment. And now we're hearing that there was no legal basis for them to actually do.
Well, I'm not sure that we issued a statement. Yeah, I saw some. When I issue statements, you know that it's done on official letterhead I sign. Every now and then, people put out things and say that we issue statements. I told you that when the matter first broke, there was an engagement at the highest levels of government with Clag. We sought to understand what their issues were, and we thought that we could reach accommodation on the matter, and that they will not go to the extent that they've gone to threaten to declare a strike. But we are a government that has to act on the basis of law. Someone has been appointed to a position through due process. To remove that person, you must go through due process, and there must be a basis. When we looked at the law, consulted with government's legal advisors, it became clear that there was nothing irregular about the appointment of Mr. Samuel Dwumfour. So we cannot remove him merely because Clag says it is civil servants who have to occupy that position. We have to determine whether it is indeed true that that position is reserved for civil servants. And the latter and spirit of this law, as is here in black and white, I can show it to you, and you can dig it up and do your own independent analysis. There's nowhere in the section 2 of this law which clothes the president with power to make the appointment that says he should pick a civil servant. There's none. If Clag is talking about past precedents, there was nothing wrong with a civil servant occupying that position once the appointment was being made under this law by the president. But the president decides that you, Kester, should become birth and death registrar because you have specific qualifications. There will be nothing wrong with it. Because you are now a journalist, it does not preclude you from occupying that position. That is the point that we seek to make. Yes.
So, still on the issue of the Clag side.
Yes.
That will be a follow-up. Do I get the indication that government is sticking its guns with the main appointment that they've made, that they are not going to change?
As of now.
What is there as of now?
As of now, to the extent that there is nothing illegal or irregular about that appointment, I do not have indication that Mr. Dwumfour is going to be removed. That is what I can say for now. If the situation changes, I'm more than willing to share it with you.
Secondly, we have heard the president, whilst he was campaigning, even as of yesterday, saying that the second day of independence, where everybody can go about their duties, to criticize government, to say anything that you find wrong in this administration, they should be willing to do that. These issues that the Ghana Journalists Association have raised, what commitment is government giving to the Ghana Journalists Association to have some amount of investigation done into these allegations that they've raised against them?
We will ask for an update from the security agencies who I'm certain are the ones conducting investigations on how or what headway has been made. But I need to stress again, you see, the preamble to your question is that the president has declared that he is willing to be criticized and that nobody will suffer for criticizing him or his government. The Ghana Journalists Association has not been able to say that you, Komla, criticized me for wearing a green shirt today, and for that reason I'm unhappy about it, so I've set people on you to harass you. They are not able to make the allegation, unless of course there is something that I have not heard. But they are not saying that. They are just saying journalists have been attacked. Now, as to who has attacked the journalists is even unclear. As I said, if you live here and you are going home and someone in your view violates your right of passage or your right of way on the road, then you engage in a heated argument and a person assaults you, it can be reported that a journalist has been assaulted, can it not? But would it be fair to say that because you have been assaulted over a disagreement with another member of the public, then journalists are under threat in Ghana and that they have been attacked? I don't think that it is fair. The specific instances relate to reportage on Galamsey. Illegal miners by nature are people acting lawlessly, and government has been at pains to stress its commitment to addressing that difficulty. So if going to report that results in a situation where some of those illegal miners attack you, these are not state actors. They are not state actors. Even in instances where a state actor assaults a journalist, you need to determine whether he was acting as part of a design by government to silence criticism, or he was just overzealous and acted on his own. So we need to delineate the issues and understand what has happened. But if you lump everything together and heap blame at the doorstep of government, it creates a misleading narrative, which is not right. That is why we have requested for the meeting with the Ghana Journalists Association to dialogue over this matter. But as for the general commitment to protecting every Ghanaian citizen, including journalists, government remains steadfast in that position. So we will be demanding an update on where things are in terms of the investigation. But we needed to clarify that these people have not acted on the CSO of government.
Yes. Finally, from me, this may not necessarily be on the three topics that we raised this morning, but on the 10th of January 2025, the President, through his secretary, wrote to the IGP to request for immediate investigation to the 8 Ghanaians during the 2020 and 2024 general elections. What is the status of that request the President made of the IGP, and what's the way forward regarding that?
Well, we are yet to receive a report in that regard. Once we receive it, we will make it known to the public. Or better still, I can make some inquiry about where things are and update you on it. But it only underscores the commitment of this government to ensure that such matters are dealt with and justice is sought every time that these things occur.
I just wanted to just get clarity on this because it's on our journal.
Sure.
The NC has revoked their license of some radio stations, and one particular radio station, for the reason is that there is active violence and security threat. Do we get some evidence? Because I'm picking on social media, people asking whether they...
Well, that is a matter that the Minister for Communications and the NCA would have to address. So subsequently, they will engage the public to shed light on the reasons informing the action. But as for regulatory action, it is something that we need to support. What it is that if stations are targeted because of their political leanings and views, then there's a difficulty. But if there's a general violation of the principles and rules and ethics governing the practice of media and broadcasting, it is the duty of regulators to step in and ensure that people are complying with Ghanaian law. So that general principle must be laid. I know that in the past, when some radio stations were closed, we criticized it severely, and we did so because the reasons that they gave clearly were unconvincing, they were untenable, and it was obvious that they were targeting those radio stations because of their political perceived political leanings or views. But I don't believe that is what has happened in this case. But as I said, I would encourage the NCA and the Ministry of Communication to engage the public to explain the reasons behind why this action has been taken. I know that a statement has been issued by the Minister of Communications announcing and shedding some light on this, but perhaps more needs to be done going forward to drive home the reasons for this. But I certainly can rule out political motivation or considerations other than pure regulatory violations. And President Mahama, as I have indicated, is not one going to target people because of what they believe in. His record is clear, and I believe that those of you in the media can attest to it more than any group of people. Yes.
Okay, we have seen a petition making rounds signed by the minority leader addressed to the president, essentially asking him to reverse the revocation of the public sector appointments. First of all, has your office received this petition? And secondly, what would be your response to his plea that this is a contravention to the 1992 Constitution, the appointment, and asking you to reverse it?
Well, first of all, I'm not aware that any such petition has been received, but we can always verify. These are matters of record, which we can always find out. But in terms of the substance of the petition, I think we've explained this. That when the transition process began, we noticed these speedy, hurriedly arranged, often highly irregular recruitments into various public agencies. We raised the issue. Indeed, on the very first day of the joint transition meeting, we raised the issue. And you recall that after the meeting, I addressed the media and pointed out that we have this serious concern about the manner in which these appointments are made. We had asked for some dialogue and engagement between our side and the outgoing government side to have an understanding of what exactly is happening. We also thought that because a new government was coming in, it was important that certain decisions are reserved for them to take. Whilst it is true that the tenure of the previous government ended on 6th January. It is also true that it was the incoming government that was going to bear the brunt in terms of remuneration and finding the money to pay these people. So surely they must have a say in how this is done. We requested for meetings, we requested for explanations. We said that they should at least hold on pending some consultation on the matter. They rebuffed it and said that they had the power to do so. And you recall that on 17 December 2024, I issued a statement on behalf of the NDC side of the transition team and indicated that given the frustration we had faced from government and its unwillingness to engage on the matter and our knowledge of the irregularities that afflict the recruitments going on, we were going to be left with no option than to reverse those decisions pending further inquiry and any other actions that may be taken going forward. So it's not like this has come as a surprise to anybody. We were very clear on our position on the matter. And there's precedent. The MPP took a similar position in the past. You recall that when they came to power, some nurses whose recruitment had begun long before the elections, their recruitments were put on hold for several months, if not a year or so. And it was because the MPP took the position that an incoming administration must have significant say in any actions that have fiscal implication for the incoming government. We also spoke about some payments that were being made and how they needed to stop so that we'll be able to have a handle on things when we take over power. So, yes.
So what received the petition and you are not...
I have not said that. I personally am not aware whether we have received, but I can find out. It's not something that should be difficult to do. But even if it has been received, the matters are very clear. And I don't think that a decision like that is taken merely because a letter has been written. There are ways in which the matters are addressed. It needs to be placed on record that the government of Ghana, the one led by President Mahama, has no difficulty with any specific individual. It doesn't matter whether you are MPP or NDC. And we believe that MPP members, just like NDC members or any other group of Ghanaians, deserve the same opportunities to serve once there are vacancies in the public and civil service. But there must be fairness in the way that this is done. The way that the recruitments were done showed clearly that there was a certain effort to railroad party supporters into the civil and public service just because elections had been conducted, the MPP had lost and they were leaving. That was done in a manner that was unfair to others who did not belong to the MPP. And let me also put it on record that this action has been taken not because of a perception or a belief that they were MPP. It is because we know that the recruitment processes were attended irregularities. In some instances, there were people who were given backdated letters to create the impression that they had long been employed before the elections, when that was not the case. There were some who did not go to interview. There were some who did not even submit an application letter expressing interest in the position. These are clear irregularities that cannot be allowed to stand. In due course, government will do recruitment, and it will be open to all Ghanaians, irrespective of political coloration. Indeed, your party identity will not be required. You will not be asked to show whether you're MPP or NDC when that comes. But we will do it in a regular manner. So even those who have had their employment revoked will still have opportunity to reapply and go through due process to be employed in the public and civil service.
The Ghanaians are concerned about when they are going to finally make the appointments for more cabinet ministers. That's the deputy ministers. Do you have an update?
Well, I mean, the president has set up his government in record time. So in the coming days, the remaining 4 deputy ministers will be made known to the people of Ghana. And once that happens, we'll be more than happy to share the information with you.
All right. There's a petition that was sent about 2 weeks ago seeking the removal of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. Has that gotten to the next of the president?
Again, I would have to find out if such a petition has been received. If it has been received, due process will be used to assess it and ascertain whether or not it is something that has to be acted on.
So there are concerns that the seeming entrenched position taken by Clag could lead to a full-blown strike. I'm curious to find out if government has made any overtures to Clag in an attempt to negotiate and agree with them that, okay, although this is a claim you're making, and you also insist on that this appointment was made in accordance. Will you find a middle ground so that...
Max, I can confirm that at the very highest levels of government, there has been engagement between Clag and government. And as I indicated, Clag says that a certain action should be taken. But government has to act on the basis of law. So we inquired as to what the premise for that demand is. If you are saying that a position should go to a civil servant, show us the basis for that position. They have been unable to show it. I have showed you the law and specific provisions, and you would all agree with me. Even if you have doubts about what I'm reading, you can dig up the law yourselves and read for yourself. Read section 2 of Act 1027, the Registration of Births and Deaths Act, and satisfy yourself as to who has the authority to make the appointment. And second, whether or not the law says anywhere that the position of the Registrar of the Births and Deaths Registry should be held by a civil servant. These, for me, are the issues at play. And to the extent that government has acted lawfully, regularly, and in accordance with the Constitution, I don't see why there should be an entrenched position on the matter. We certainly have not taken an entrenched position. We cannot act illegally simply because a section of our population, in this instance Ghanaian workers, demand that we do. I don't think that it is fair to the people of Ghana, whose taxes are used to pay civil servants, those who work in Clag, just like myself, the president, or everybody else who works within the public and civil service. You cannot take such a position which is unfair to them when the facts are very clear, the laws are very, very clear. If it was the case that government was violating the law, then you would have a basis. As I said, I'm aware that they went to court under the previous government. There's yet to be a determination on the matter. So if the matter has not been determined, there's no judicial pronouncement saying that the position of the law is wrong or what the president has done is wrong. I don't see why entrenched positions should be taken. I don't see why a nationwide strike should be declared on a matter like this. I'll take the final question and then we can call it a day. Yes. Okay, the last two questions. So your hand went up first.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Is it a contention of government that all those people who were employed, all those Ghanaians who were employed after December 7 did not qualify? Or is government going to do a thorough investigation or assess the method of appointment to ensure that those who duly met all the requirements are retained and those who were railroaded into the system are removed?
Yes, we are aware that there were significant irregularities. And indeed, it is important to stress that we started making this position known long before we took over power. At least a month before we came into power, we made a position known. We sought clarification from government at the time. We sought audience. We sought some dialogue on this matter. Those overtures were rebuffed. And we are aware that there were significant irregularities. So yes, there will be an investigation to confirm the position that we have. And as and when it is determined that there were people who went through due process, we will have no difficulty having them in the civil service. And as I said again, this has not been done on the basis of anybody's political affiliation. In fact, we don't even know who is MPP and who is NDC, because I don't think that the party card is determined. There can be legitimate suspicion because of the way, the speed and indecent haste with which these recruitments were done, that perhaps there were some political considerations. But that is not the focus. The focus is on regularity and lawful discharge of responsibility, which we believe in this case was not adhered to.
I want to find out on energy. I want to find out what is causing the power outages and what's the timeline for resolving them.
Well, I think that the energy minister or energy ministry will be best placed to explain what's happening. As far as we know, government's obligations in terms of providing fuel has been met. and therefore we should not have such difficulty. But I'm sure that the Ministry of Energy will be more than willing to shed light on exactly what is happening.
And can I know the reason why Honorable Edward was reshuffled?
Well, you recall that he was made acting Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. Acting simply means that you are holding a fort pending a final determination of who should hold the position. So one of two things can happen. You can be confirmed as substantive CEO, or another person can be appointed. Mr. Ibebawa is a highly knowledgeable individual in the energy sector of Ghana. He has demonstrated his competence over the period. So the president believed that in the immediate aftermath of the change in government, he should act at GMPC. Subsequently, the president determined that his expertise and knowledge would help significantly in the area of the downstream sector. So he thought that he should go to GOIL so that he brings his considerable knowledge and expertise to bear on the operations of that entity. And then he subsequently appointed someone to GMPC. So it was just part of a restructuring of the energy sector to achieve optimal results going forward. All right. Thank you very much for coming. Yes. So this is off record. I know that many of you, as well those of you who are part of the